The Pam Goodwin Show is a show that features the biggest names in television, successful entrepreneurs, future new talents, and local heroes. In 2016, she became the first female javelin thrower to win a NCAA title and U.S. Olympic team trials title in the same season. She broke her femur and chipped her growth plate when she was in kindergarten, and the doctors thought her leg would never grow again. Our next guest went from small-town Nebraska to making the Olympics in Tokyo and Rio for the javelin throw. Welcome, Maggie Malone. It's so funny. I was driving back from Nebraska back to Texas and saw a sign in Geneva, Nebraska that said Maggie Malone Olympic, and I had to reach out to her. So I'm thrilled to have our next guest, Maggie Malone. Welcome, Maggie.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And the most comment that I get about Geneva is is your name on that billboard? And I was like, yep, it's a small town.
Oh, I love that. So tell us how a small town girl from Nebraska goes to the Olympics. I brought my flag, so I'm so proud of you.
Oh, you do? Oh my gosh, I love that. So I grew up in a small town. Both of my parents were athletes and coaches. They coached me all through, pee-wees to high school, and just grew up doing every sport. So volleyball, basketball, softball, track, and just was really blessed to have great parents that kind of cultivated that and didn't pressure me in any way, but just really cultivated my athletic spirit and athleticism. Ended up going to Nebraska for track and field as a heptathlete. If you guys know what that is, it's 7 events. My mom was a heptathlete at Nebraska. She's actually in the Hall of Fame there. And I think they thought that I was going to be like her, but she was just much more athletic than I was.
What is that exactly? What is that exactly?
The heptathlon is, so it's like the decathlon. So if you know what, the decathletes, it's the greatest athletes in the world. So it's the female version of the decathlon. So you do jumps, sprints, it's 7 events. And based on your performance in each event, you get a number of points. And then at the end of the 7 events, whoever has the most points is the winner. And so they wanted me to be a heptathlete, but I just wasn't the best at it. I tried really, really hard though. But luckily, javelin was a part of one of the events in the heptathlon. And so they were like, hey, you're picking up javelin pretty quickly. Maybe we transition you from from the heptathlon to javelin. And so kind of through just a bumpy ride of trying things out. And, one day at the Nebraska track, my coach said, hey, if you throw past this cone, you can compete just in the javelin at Big Tens next week. And I was like, great. And so threw past the cone and ended up going to Big Tens that year, got 3rd, ended up going to nationals, got 10th. And I didn't know what a javelin was until I was 19. So it just kind of came naturally. I think God just kind of gave me a gift and said, hey, Maggie, use this as a platform to proclaim my name. And so that's what I've been doing. And so ended up transferring to Texas A&M after 2014 because my coach took a job at A&M and my family moved to College Station, which is where Texas A&M is. Ended up going there, made my first Olympic team in 2016 with my coach, Juan De La Garza, aka Chico, and then moved out to Birmingham in 2019. Man, all the years are blending together. COVID really just messed up my time frame. And so moved out to Birmingham in 2019, started a group out here called USA Javelin Project, and started training for the 2021 Olympics. Ended up making this 2021 Olympics, and just has been a really, really blessed season ever since.
What a huge accomplishment. Did you, as a young girl, what did I read that in kindergarten you were injured and they didn't think that your leg would grow again? So
it's such a crazy story. So if you can picture the kind of like the fort type things that are in people's backyards with the slide and the monkey bars and all that. So I was at my babysitter and our good friends, the DeLong's house, and they had one of those. And Luke, one of my good friends, he was playing on the swing. I was climbing up to like the fort part, And I think I was climbing and he like said something. I started laughing and my foot fell through the 2 slats that you would climb up. And then I fell backwards. And so as I fell backwards, I broke my femur and like everything in my leg, and it significantly chipped and impacted my growth plate to the point where the first doctor we went to said, hey, it's never going to grow again. We should probably stunt the other leg so that she would be the same size. And my parents were like, absolutely not. Like, we are not going to take that route. And so thankfully we we knew of him, and he had worked with my dad, Dr. Samani. And so we went up to Lincoln, Nebraska, and he worked with me for pretty much the next like 5 years. And everything was growing and everything was going well. And so every year that I would have some success in track and field or something, I would always write him a thank you note. I think when I made my first Olympic team, I wrote him a huge thank you, just because I mean, he changed my life. I would never have accomplished anything, and I wouldn't have the life that I have now without him saying, we're not going to do that. We're going to give it a chance. I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that she's healthy and that we can basically allow her to have a normal life.
I'm so glad because, following where you've been and everything that you've been able to do. But when you were small, did you have dreams of going to the Olympics, or when did it become a reality for you?
It's so funny because we grew up watching the Olympics, obviously. And I remember watching Allison Felix and Michael Phelps. And like, I can still remember the swim touch, that everybody remembers when Michael Phelps like beat him at the wall. I can remember in that moment just being like, oh my gosh, like I want to be a part of this. But you're from a town of 2,000, that you've never seen anybody in your circle actually do it. And I knew that I was a good athlete, but I was a good athlete for Nebraska, and I wasn't even the best. Like we had greater athletes coming out of Nebraska, Jordan Larson being one, LaQuay Moen Davis. So you have these people that you're like, they can do it, but I can't. There's no way that I could make it to that level. And so it just is a really cool way that God just, I don't know, like created my path and guided my path, because I just never thought that it could happen for me. Yes, it was a dream. And it's funny because, being in a small town, people were like, you're most likely to this. And mine was always like, most likely to be an Olympian. And it was like a joke, but I guess 2 Olympics later, it's not a joke.
What is your training schedule like? I saw a post on Instagram. What were you lifting? 315 pounds, or what was it?
Yeah. So I do 2-a-days. So I work a full-time job. I work at a company called Wild Spark. We are a team-based leadership development strategy. And so we work with companies all across the United States, from Chick-fil-A to financial institutions to hospitals, banks. And so because of that, I have to split my day into 2 days. So I lift in the morning, and then I do technical training in the evening. And so wake up 6 a.m., go to the gym 6:30, and we'll load up 350 pounds. I don't remember how much it was. But I do a lot of deadlift, pull-ups, and it just depends on what's happening throughout the year. So we're all in different phases throughout the year to make sure that we get maximum distance at the end of the season. And so every day is a build up to when we're trying to peak. And so what you are referring to on my Instagram was a heavy strength phase in my training, and we push the weights hard. I have an awesome strength coach in Arizona that I work with. His name is Malcolm Gwilliam, and he's been phenomenal. I've never worked harder with a strength coach than what he has programmed for me, and he's made all the difference this year, really.
Yeah, I know that training has to, just watching you, on Instagram and everything, that you continue to train, because you were in the 2016 Rio Olympics, and I believe you took 25th in the javelin.
Yeah. So a significant increase from Rio.
and then 2020 in Tokyo, we just watched you, and I believe it said you placed 10th.
Yes, yeah, and was hoping to get a little bit more. I had the third best throw of the year and still have the third best throw this year. So I was hoping for a little bit more of distance in the final. I just think, I didn't know what to expect in an Olympic final. It's very intense. And I feel like I learned a lot from that experience to now take with me coming into the next few years, because these next few years are pretty vital to track and field athletes. They're extremely important. We have a world championship here in our backyard, Eugene, Oregon, next year. And then we have another world championship in Budapest. And then Olympics, Paris 2024 is right around the corner. So 3 big years coming up. I feel like I've just gleaned a lot of lessons from the final that I'm going to apply to these next few years.
I watch the Olympics too. I've always been a big fan of that, and always so proud when I see the USA athletes come out on that big stage. But how does that feel being part of the USA team?
Oh my goodness. It is truly a dream. And a lot of times in our bubble here in the United States, it's really easy to look around and be like, well, this is wrong and this is wrong, and here's what we can fix in the US, and we're not here. And while some of that is true, and we can be better in a lot of areas, there's, when you get to the Olympics and you see all these other countries and you see what the United States brings and what we have to support our athletes, from physio to coaches to meals and, everything in between, it really is an honor to be a part of the United States. And when we walk in, people do notice, and a lot of countries are, in awe of what the US has and what we have to offer. And then seeing the athletes that have come from the United States, it truly is an honor to wear that across my chest, and to call myself an American, and to really get to compete for the United States, a country that I love and respect, and will hopefully get to represent on a podium in a few years.
I'm sure you will be up there. I noticed that you have a tattoo on your wrist. Yes. What does it say?
It says Rio. So it's the Rio 2016 logo. And so I will be adding the Tokyo 2021 also. Yes.
Do people stop you and want to see your tattoo?
Yeah, they definitely have. And it's really funny because, so my parents growing up were like, you can't have a tattoo, you can't have a tattoo. And then when I was in high school, I think I said something like, what if I make the Olympics? Can I get the Olympic rings? And, totally joking. And my dad was like, yeah, if you make the Olympics, you can get a tattoo. And so then when I made it in 2016, I was like, joke's on you, Dad.
I love that. That's great. I love that. Yeah. So if all those, I drive by and I see all these young kids, athletes, training for soccer and all this, what advice would you have if you want to make it to the Olympics?
Yeah, man, there's so much advice that I would give. I would say the first thing is be patient. I think a lot of times parents and kids think that there's just this upward trajectory, and that everything needs to be, progress like this. And a lot of times it's like this, there's going to be highs and lows, and there's always a learning curve to anything that you're trying to be really good at. And so I think you need to be patient in it. And if it doesn't come right away, it doesn't mean that it's not working. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it anymore, but you need to continue to persevere through it and keep learning. And if you're passionate about it, things will work out. I'm not saying that you'll make the Olympics, but you're going to learn more from that perseverance and from the process of continuing with the sport, rather than if you just would have backed out and said, well, I shouldn't do it, I'm not good at it. So that'd be one. Second thing is you do need to be willing to sacrifice, and whether that's sacrifice time with family or travel or vacations, or going out with your friends on a Saturday night. There's a lot of sacrifice that comes with this sport. And so if you are willing to sacrifice in those areas, it's definitely going to help your, it's going to help your chances of becoming a great athlete or becoming great at whatever it is you want to be great at. There's always going to be sacrifice involved.
I know it takes a lot of hard work, perseverance, like you said, a lot of sacrifices to succeed. And I always ask my guests, what else is on your bucket list?
Oh my goodness. What is on my bucket list? I really do want to either write a book or speak. I think that that's something that God has gifted me with, and I'm not sure what that is going to look like in the future. But if I have an opportunity to, right now, I get an opportunity to speak to a lot of organizations across the U.S. with my job. I'd love to speak with schools and different organizations just to talk about my journey, what I've learned, because I do think that there is a lot of transferable skills from sport to, young kids to adults, to anybody in between. And so I want to just share my experience with them. And, I'm a person that just wants to relate with people and hear their stories. And so I think that getting to be in this position as a javelin thrower, I've gotten to do that across the world. And it's such a blessing. And I'm so thankful for what my life looks like right now. And yes, it took a lot of hard work, and there's going to be a lot of bumps, I'm sure, to come in the future. But I would love to, podcast, to start, read a book, speak to people. That's kind of the wheelhouse that I'm looking at currently.
Oh, good. We look forward to your book. I know you'll have a lot of inspiration on that. And I did want to ask you one question. I know you're a person of faith, and so am I. And I loved that I read regarding how you wrote about the braid that you wore and how that's related. I'd like, just to share a little bit about that. I just thought that was really, really neat.
Yeah, so I never wore braid this whole year. I always had my hair nice and wild. You can see it. It's a wild thing. And so my last competition, I just felt like I wanted to do something different and something that would just signify strength and wisdom and the connection that I have felt with Christ throughout this year. And when I just researched, I just kept having this image of a braid. And so I researched what it meant. And it did. It meant strength and wisdom and connection. And so I was like, I really want to end my season wearing this. I know what it means. I have truly just felt like God was a part of the season and continues to be a part of the season. And I never thought that this year was going to end up looking like it did. I broke 2 American records, and I never, ever would have thought that that would have been a part of my journey. But God truly just was a part of this and blessed it and said, hey, Maggie, this is my story. It's not yours. And so to be able to just braid my hair, knowing that it was strength and the wisdom and the connection with him, it was just a great way to cap off the season.
I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. Well, it's been excellent finally having you on the show. Ever since I passed that sign, and actually heading back to Nebraska tomorrow, and we'll pass your sign again. Do you get back to Nebraska?
I'm trying to. So my grandma just turned 91. I've been trying to see her. She's in Hastings, Nebraska. And I have a ton of family still in Lincoln and Hastings. And so I'm trying to get back. I'm going to be moving to Arizona. And so it's been a lot of chaos in the last few months. But that is the number one thing that I'm trying to coordinate, is get back home to my home roots.
Good. Well, good luck with everything. We will continue to follow your career, and we will look forward to seeing you in the next Olympics.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, keep sending prayers my way. Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Maggie.